You could now subscribe and save 20% with a Strava Craft Coffee subscription. We know a bunch of you have taken advantage of the one-time code, and you can now save 20% off your favorite coffee forever, and you'll never have to put your credit card info in again. I saw a little preview of my guy Zach here. I think he's already sipping on some Strava Craft coffee this morning. I had to mainline my coffee right as I got out of bed to be able to do a show this early. Of course, we're going early because the Broncos are doing some early media availability today. So figure we get the live pod in nice and early. And when you're getting up early to do your work, you got to have your Strava Craft coffee. So when you subscribe, you can choose to have it delivered to your door every 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 weeks. Never have to worry about putting in your credit card info. Never have to worry about, running down to the store because you ran out of coffee when you weren't expecting to. Make sure you check them out. And if you just want to try them out one time before you commit to subscribing, you can, of course, use the code DNVR20 to check them out. So check out Strava Craft Coffee. Get that rich, tasty CBD-infused coffee in your life today.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. 2 goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. 3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friendly orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast on a Friday. If you're up early riding with us, we appreciate you very much on the live side of things. Of course, if you're listening on podcasts, you can listen whenever you want. Of course, the DNVR Broncos podcast every day is presented by MSU Denver Online. Make sure you check out MSU Denver Online, where you can make money and work while earning your degree. MSU Denver students can tell you all about that because they work double the hours while taking classes than any other institution in Colorado. MSU Denver puts a dynamic education at your fingertips without forcing you to choose between earning a degree and living your life. So check out msudenver.edu/online today and scope out all they have to offer.
My boy, Ryan, what's up? Happy Friday, man. This feels good right now. Got the Hawaiian shirt going on today, but Ryan, I gotta say, I feel like I'm honoring Andy Reid wearing it, and that's certainly not the vibe I'm going for. So, I appreciate that you skipped on the Hawaiian shirt today.
Wow, yeah. You shouldn't have admitted that because not only is it a Hawaiian shirt, which he enjoys a lot, it's also kind of red and yellow.
Boy, I didn't even think about the colors. No yellow, thankfully, but I mean, I can't deny that there's a lot of red in it. Wow. I mean, I put the shirt on this morning, and then all of this, it hit my mind. And what am I doing? I should have changed.
Yeah, that's a tough scene. But I will say this, Zach, a lot of times going into these Chiefs games, I've been decently confident about the Broncos' chances, and that certainly hasn't worked out for them. Obviously, what is it now? They've lost 9 or 11?
10.
10, okay, somewhere in between what I thought. They've lost 10 in a row, and I feel like I've been generally confident in most of those games. And that didn't work. And you certainly weren't wearing Chiefs-colored Hawaiian shirts for any of those, and that wasn't working. So, you know what? We've reached a point now where might as well change up the juju and try something new. So that's where I'm at with this because there's not that many. It's hard to find positive takes about the way this game could go or should go, and the whole world is expecting it to go.
Yeah, no, there's not. So Ryan, we're we're certainly not pulling for the Chiefs, but we're on the Chiefs side, and in hopes that it, flips the juju around. Ryan, for a second straight week, the Broncos are the biggest underdogs in the NFL. Of course, last week because of absolutely insane circumstances. And then this week, just because the Chiefs are the Chiefs and people just don't think the Broncos are that good. What are we talking about? A 2-touchdown underdog this week. I mean, that's floating into college territory in terms of those lines. That the last I saw on DraftKings Sportsbook just a couple minutes ago was 13.5. So not the full 2 touchdowns, but Ryan, no one is giving the Broncos a shot in this one.
Yeah, I really don't think they are. And I think we have our guy Mace back with us. So let's see if we can bring him in here. He is also participating in a little bit of a Hawaiian Shirt Friday here. Allie, can you bring in Mace? There he is. What's up? What's up, Mace?
Hey, let's try something different because my computer's not working, so we're trying the iPad. You know what? The next item in the DNVR locker, maybe not the next one, but at some point, needs to be a DNVR Aloha shirt.
Oh, I thought it was you were gonna say it needs to be a shirt that says "Screw this."
I've been saying that a lot in the last 15 minutes or so, trying to get this going. So, screw this. Screw this. Screw this.
Well, we got you back with us now, and you look crystal clear. And your Hawaiian shirt has a lot less red than Zach's, although you are also not innocent here.
This is specifically a holiday Aloha shirt. I have 2 of them. So you'll see this one today. You'll probably see the other one next week leading into the Carolina game. Maybe I'll rotate one back in the following week. So I'm prepared for this endeavor. And I'm prepared to be festive with my Aloha.
Mace is very committed to calling it an Aloha shirt. I just don't think I'll ever convert.
Oh. Oh, but you guys were talking about the point spreads, and it is what it is. I mean, it reflects the way the Broncos are playing. It reflects the way the Chiefs are playing. But it's also fascinating, guys. I put this out on Twitter yesterday that in the last 2 seasons, the Vic Fangio era, the only teams that have been underdogs of any level more often than the Broncos are the Bengals and the football team.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That's very bad. And, these stats just start to line up and pile up and take a toll on fans. And I totally understand it. And I get where everyone's coming from. A lot of people are really upset and running the dumps. And it leads me to where I want to set the expectations for this game. Because I got to be honest, guys, I'm super worried about the way that people are going to react to this game when what I think is going to happen happens, and that is I just don't think Broncos have a shot this weekend, and I think that if people aren't expecting them to win and change their expectations to something else, there might be a little bit better chance of less meltdowns from Broncos fans. So the question in the headline is what constitutes a successful game for the Broncos against the Chiefs? And to be honest, it's crazy to say this in the NFL because I don't really think you can have moral victories in the NFL. But I think there is a path to success without victory, just if we're being realistic and honest here. And to me, it's keeping it close. It's having a clean performance without, turnovers on the offensive side of the ball, without ugly special teams, miscues, all of those things. And I think if you are competitive in the fourth quarter of this game, I have a hard time seeing how I would leave that game being extremely disappointed in the Broncos.
Guys, is this the first time that we've ever talked about a moral victory, like going into a game? And because you're right, Ryan, that's not something that you talk about in the NFL. That's something that you talk about when Chattanooga is playing Alabama and they're 63-point underdogs or something. And you say, okay, well, if they keep it to 55, we'll be happy with that. But that's just where we are. So you're right. I think it is smart to set expectations, realistic expectations going into this game. And for me, a successful game is where both teams score in the 20s, okay, with no backdoor cover. So let's say Chiefs 29, Broncos 20, but it's not because the Broncos score a last-second touchdown to get to 20. Obviously anything else in there, 24, 23 would be very successful. But if you keep the Chiefs under 30, it's a win. And where this Broncos offense is, if they're able to score 20, then I'm going to say, okay, happy enough with this game. That means they will cover the spread, and likely it'll be a one-score game. But again, if it's 29-20, you're not thrilled with it, but you're saying defense did their job, against the Chiefs, and the offense did not enough to win, but, they weren't terrible.
Well, it's interesting. Literally, guys, the Broncos have never straight up won a regular season game, not since 1978, which is as far back as the records on Pro Football Reference go. They have not won since then as a straight up as an underdog of 10 or more. They won in the Super Bowl as an 11-point underdog over Green Bay back in January of 98, and they won a strike game in 87. So I should say, okay, non-strike game. So in all those other contests, guys, they're 0-12, including last week.
How crazy is that?
Or
First of all,
pardon me.
that they haven't pulled off an upset like that, which you feel like happens all over the place all the time. But more importantly, that they were 11-point underdogs in a Super Bowl. Like, think about that. Just a field goal different from the gap that we're talking about right now. Like, just a god-awful line, honestly. I'm putting that one on the odds makers. Just a terrible, terrible line. Like, think about that. Think about the gap that we're talking about right now. We're talking about the Broncos and the Chiefs being in two different stratospheres, or at least that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you have to understand the era. It was a time when the NFC going into that had won every Super Bowl from Super Bowl 19 to Super Bowl 31. So the NFC had that 13-game winning streak, and even though clearly the Broncos were a very good team and had been 13-3 the year before, they looked at that. There was still that thought that the NFC is better than the AFC, much better. So that's why that line was what it was. And I don't think we'll see a Super Bowl that looks like that, where you have a 13-3 team that's an 11-point favorite over a 12-point team. I digress, but let's face it, that's more fun than talking about the possibilities of this game. I mean, you guys, and I'm sure other people are saying, moral victory. This is what the Broncos have become?
Yes.
Settling for a moral victory. We've talked a lot about ownership and Pat Bowlen. How would Pat Bowlen feel about a moral victory? He would probably respond with some expletives under his breath about the notion of a moral victory.
Real quick, I can't get past this 11-point line in a Super Bowl. Some teams that are double-digit favorites this week. I just want you to understand the gap that they thought there was in that game. The Minnesota Vikings, who are a good football team, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars with Mike Glennon as their quarterback. That's a 10-point game. That's less. The Miami Dolphins taking on the Cincinnati Bengals with Brandon Allen as their quarterback. That's 11.5. The New York Giants without Daniel Jones going to Seattle to take on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. They're 10-point underdogs. Like, think about these gaps. That's ridiculous. Anyways, okay.
That is ridiculous. And it's also ridiculous that, we're talking, like May said, we're talking about moral victories, and that the Broncos are even a bigger spread than all those teams you just mentioned, Ryan.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And the Broncos are the biggest underdogs of the week in the NFL. And it's gotten to this point. Like, it just is. It's here. No one wants it to be here. No one likes that it's here. But on top of the fact that the Chiefs are really good and the Broncos just aren't, I think the biggest reason why this spread is so big is because in the Vic Fangio era specifically, the Chiefs have done nothing but blow out the Broncos. I'm not talking like 14-point blowouts. I'm talking like blow the doors off, no chance at any point type blowouts. In
the same era of Vic Fangio is also when the Chiefs have a new defensive coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo has had the Broncos number. Guys, in the 3 games that the Broncos have played the Chiefs in the Vic Fangio era, the Broncos have 25 points. Total
That wouldn't have won any of those games, would it?
No, it wouldn't have. And it's probably not even going to win this game. So that's just why I'm saying if they score 20, that's kind of a success on offense, because it would almost equate to the amount of points they had in the past 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason you haven't heard us breaking down the matchups in this game a lot this week. It's not it's just not a fun path to go down. Now we're at Friday, so we got to talk about the game. But it's very difficult to paint any sort of picture about how the Broncos are going to win this game. Now, are we talking about the National Football League where all these guys are professional players and crazy things happen all the time? Yes, I will not tell you that I'll tell you that there is a greater than 0 chance that the Broncos actually do win this game. It's just very low. It's very low. And for me, when I think about what's successful, I do think about this being a competitive game all the way through. And then we have to get back to what the point of this whole season is, and that's Drew Lock. And Drew has been specifically pretty bad against the Chiefs in his opportunities against them, the 2 opportunities that he's had. Now, one was in a blizzard, and, I've constantly said I want to throw that game tape away. But as I also always say, the further you get away from a game, the less people remember the context. So no one really people have already forgotten the context of that game. All they see is that he had a terrible game once against the Chiefs, and then he didn't play much better last time. He threw a pick 6 that was really the early nail in the coffin for the Broncos. That he cannot do anything like that this week. He's got to take care of the football. He's got to put the Broncos in positions to score points. He's got to make some really big plays, not just third down, scramble out, complete a 6-yard pass on 3rd and 5. Like, get out of the pocket, unleash a bomb, score a 60-yard touchdown. Things that we haven't seen from Drew Lock all year. He's going to have to do some stuff like that if they're going to win. But I don't think they're going to win. I want to see him play clean. Just play a clean game. No turnovers, no really bad decisions, no throwing off your back foot because Chris Jones somehow came through the line untouched and sailing it into the hands of the safety. I just want to see him take care of his part of not being a part of why the Broncos lose. If he can say, look, it's Patrick Mahomes on the other side. What did you guys want me to do? And it wasn't his fault that the Broncos lost. Then I think that's a step in the right direction. And that's what we're looking for at this point. We're looking for steps in the right direction as Drew makes his way towards the end of this kind of test drive season.
Okay, so all that you laid out is putting a lot on Drew Lock. Yet the way to stay in this game probably is on the ground and possessing the ball. Now, Drew Lock is involved with that. Drew's going to have to be accurate, but it may not involve uncorking the deep ball unless it is to take advantage of the safeties creeping down closer into the box if you've established the run first. But so is that is it a case where maybe learning more about Drew Lock means going with a game plan that isn't necessarily the best, albeit narrow path to victory?
I think so. Yeah. I think, again, you don't want to put it on his shoulders. I just don't want him to have a negative impact on the outcome.
So couldn't the game be very similar to the Dolphins game a couple of weeks ago, where he was not the reason, that the Broncos dominated the Dolphins, but he did nothing, I guess, outside of the one interception. He did nothing to hurt the Broncos' chances. He was a true game manager there.
Yeah, and the Broncos ran the hell out of the ball. And if you remember last time, before Phillip Lindsay took a helmet-to-helmet hit, he was ready to go off. And if that had happened, I think that, you would have seen maybe a different Drew Lock who just, really needs to hand the ball to Phillip Lindsay. I think Phillip Lindsay had something like 80 yards in the first half before he was hurt. So that is the path. We might be looking back after this game saying, well, might have actually been a blessing in disguise that Drew Lock didn't have to play against the Saints because the Broncos got back to an opponent that they could run the ball against, and they could go back to him, kind of managing the game instead of having to convert 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s the whole game. He's in more favorable positions, which every offense wants to be in, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s. And if that happens, I think Drew will hopefully be able to channel his inner game manager and just say, all right, I just got to convert easy throws, take what they're giving me, and hand the ball off to Phil.
Yeah, and strangely enough, that means this is also on the defense, and it's also on the special teams, because you start right there. Go back to that kickoff return in the game back in October. If you're going to keep the game manageable and still in terms of the offensive game plan, you can't be giving away big shots. So in other words, the defense has to play well. Kind of like, a little bit like the game in Kansas City in the snow last year. I mean, it wasn't a win for the Broncos, but mostly the defense was having the Chiefs settle for field goals rather than touchdowns when they got inside the red zone. And that at least gave the Broncos a pulse for longer in that game than they otherwise would have had. So keep let the Chiefs get their yards between the 20-yard lines. If they're settling for field goals, they're not pulling away, and you don't have to junk your game plan early in the game like you have in some of these other games. And then the other thing is you can't give away touchdowns on special teams, and you can't have a giveaway that results in a touchdown on the offensive side. You've got to play maybe boring ass football in this game so you can run your game plan all the way through and keep the game within shouting distance, so you don't have to start throwing the ball up 75% of the time.
Well, Mace, you mentioned special teams, and yesterday I know a lot of people had some fun with this quote from Tom McMahon. He said, if we're going to win this game, we have to win special teams, and that's when kind of everyone on Twitter said, we're not winning this game.
Yeah. I can't remember a time, anytime. I know it's happened, but I can't remember the last time the Broncos outplayed the Chiefs on special teams in a game against the Chiefs.
No, I mean, it's so much so that the Broncos almost hired the Chiefs special teams coordinator because of just how good that special teams unit is.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that is, I mean, the Chiefs are full of speed and talent, and those things translate to special teams really, really well. They've got a kicker who's kicking the ball really well this season. I just think of these games. I remember long punt returns. I remember, Brandon McManus missing a long field goal in the frozen tundra in Denver. Like, there's a lot of bad special teams I remember from Broncos Chiefs. Not a lot of good special teams that I remember from the Broncos side. So, in terms of this game, I think the one matchup that I do want to talk about is on Tyreek Hill. You saw what happened last week when you don't pay special attention to him, and you just kind of try to say, like, well, we'll just, try to play straight up. If he beats us, he beats us. He'll beat you. And the Broncos don't have, the guy that you would probably have trusted the most if you were going to try to go man on him at any point during this game was Bryce Callahan. Without Bryce Callahan, now I think you have to have a very special, very specific game plan to stop and slow down Tyreek Hill. And almost the Chiefs did you a favor last week by showing you what happens when you don't do that.
Doesn't AJ Boye have to be on him the entire game? Because the drop-off from him is just a bunch of young guys, a ton of young guys. And I'm not saying just put AJ Boye on him. I'm saying AJ and safety help pretty much every time. Because what's it going to look like for Vic if Michael Ojemudia is getting just, torched by him? Even if it's Bosby, I love Bosby, but people are going to say this is an inexperienced corner who hasn't played much this year. He's been cut multiple times, and he's going up against Tyreek. I mean, doesn't it have to be Boye?
To me, actually, no. The opposite is true. I'm going pick your poison, any corner and a safety over him at all times. So, if you're going to double someone, you're going to have to single up somewhere else on the field. And I'd rather double with lesser corners and single up with AJ Boye somewhere else.
So you're going to single Travis Kelce. That's the problem. If you bring safety help over to take care of Tyreek, then you're guaranteeing one-on-one coverage for Travis Kelce, and this is part of the conundrum that dooms so many teams against the Chiefs. I mean, the Bucs last week, Let Tyreek Hill run free. That's that's not something that you want to do. I mean, it basically cost them the upset right there.
Yeah, you can get away with, and when I say get away with, I just mean you don't get blown out. Like, you can get away with Travis Kelce chunking you 10 to 20 yards at a time. It's Tyreek Hill chunking you 40 to 80 yards at a time that really gets the game out of hand. So, yeah, I mean, this is why the Chiefs are the Chiefs, is you have to make these decisions every week, and no one has the defensive personnel to cover all those guys. The one thing we've seen that allows you to cover those guys is with your pass rush, because you simply can't cover them for a long time, so you have to get pressure. And maybe the Broncos can generate some pressure this week to alleviate some of the pressure on that secondary, but it's there's a comment here that said this sounds like a 2013 Chiefs podcast talking about trying to stop the Broncos offense. It is. Like, that's where we're at here. It's a pick your poison scenario, and for me, my poison is, first of all, pray they run the ball, and invite them to do so at every opportunity you can, and then try to take away Tyreek Hill and live with 10-yard catches to Travis Kelce.
Ryan, you didn't learn from the first time the Broncos played the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes had one of his worst statistical games of the season, and the Chiefs scored 43 points. Now, I know 14 was from non-offense, but they still scored 29 points on offense.
29 hits your number.
It does. It does hit the number, but in terms of winning, that's not good enough. And Ryan,
I know it's not, but I'm not trying. I'm not looking at the path for a win. I'm looking at the path to respectability.
I'm getting close to that game time, and like you said, during the week, the Buffs aren't going to win a game, not this year, but in the past. And then game time comes and you're saying, they have to win this game. They're going to. I'm getting closer to game time, so I'm saying, how can the Broncos actually win? You can't let the Chiefs be two-dimensional. You can't. You absolutely can't. And here's the thing: is you're not going to take away Patrick Mahomes. So that means you have to take away the one aspect that you can, and that's the running game. Patrick Mahomes has lost 9 games in his NFL career. In 8 of those, the Chiefs have been outrushed. In fact, they've been outrushed so bad that the opponents have put up 166 rushing yards against them, while the Chiefs only have 79. So, I mean, they just get dominated on the ground. So, as crazy as it is, and I can't believe I'm saying this for a second time this season, make Patrick Mahomes beat you.
Yeah, the comment here, these are the expectations that I'm hoping that people don't have, because it's just that doesn't set up very well, in my opinion. And I don't think it's going to end up being a referendum on Drew Lock's ability to be the quarterback or not, whether he can keep the Broncos competitive in this specific game. I don't think that's a formula for a good feeling if you're setting yourself up like that.
No, it certainly isn't. Man, so what's a successful game from Drew in terms of stats?
Honestly, I want to say as low as just 0 turnovers. But he obviously has to do some other stuff above that. So I'll say 0 turnovers and 60% or better completions. I'm not even getting into yards and touchdowns. I just want to see efficient play.
Yeah, 60%. I know it's the baseline. I talk about it a lot. We mention it on here, but I think that's the essential part of it. 60%, and then, like you said, no turnovers. I hate to say it, but I want to see a game that at least starts with Drew Lock not beating the Broncos.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And then if you get that, that means, even though he did have the pick early against Miami, that's 2 games in a row that he's played where he didn't beat you. And in fact, he probably made some key throws along the way to, in this case, keep it respectable against the Dolphins, basically get the offense going and set up the run a little bit. And then when you start facing Carolina, maybe much less Buffalo, but Carolina and the Chargers in 2 of the next 3 games, then you kind of say, okay, can we build on that here? Can we take just managing it and not losing into being a reason that we actually win the game? If you're the Broncos, I think that's what you're thinking.
Good news here. Sunday night, Kansas City, 6 p.m. when they'll be kicking off, or 7 p.m. Only 40. Only 40. You don't want to see it dip down into like 18, because then that's going to be no fun. 40, you can deal with.
Yes, you certainly can. So we'll get to see what Drew can do, without any elements going up against the Chiefs this weekend. And guys, I want to see the game management and everything. Tell me if this is too greedy, though. I want to see him hit on one big play. That's not a last-second play where he's supposed to throw it out of bounds or something.
Yeah, you might want to tune into my 58-yard field goal later.
Right on.
Hey, if you get the run game going and you get the play action game going, I think you can hit that big play, that deep shot down the field to Jerry Jeudy or Tim Patrick. It'll be there, but you have to do other things beyond Drew Lock to make it happen.
Speaking of predictions, we are going to get to all of them on the podcast side of things. If you want to hear our final score predictions for not just this game, but our picks against the spread for the AFC West, tune in on the podcast side of things. You can download it anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll get to that. We'll get to all of our listener questions. We'd love if you hit us with a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube. We appreciate those. Those help other people discover us. And if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be helpful as well. But for now, it's going to wrap it up for us on the live side of things. Have a great weekend, guys, and we'll talk to you after the game.